Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Almost 30 podcast. It is Lindsey, and I am running this intro today. I'm really excited about our guest today, Case Kenny. It is a conversation for those dating and also for those in relationship. Just some really incredible insights from his work and also from his new book, The Opposite of Settling. We'll get into it in a moment. But if you're new to the show, welcome. Hello. This is a place where we hope you will feel supported and resourced, and just like you can kind of kick it during seasons of change, which I found is to be quite often in life. Krista and I started this during our late 20s, going into our 30s, where we just felt like shit was hitting the fan and we wanted to talk about it. But it's really evolved into a place that people come to learn and grow and connect. And it's the best. Thanks for being with us over the last 9 years. We love you. Thank you so freaking much for buying our book. We have a new book out as of June 3rd. It's called Almost 30, A Definitive Guide to a Life You Love for the Next Decade and Beyond. And this is truly a guide to navigate change. So whether you are in your late 20s or another age, it is for you. It's a really special book. I think it's so good. And we've been hearing from so many of you who got the book, and just how it found you at the right time, and how, it's really like it's a full meal. So it's taking you a moment to like take it all in and kind of put to practice the thoughts and practices. And yeah, I'm really honored to be in your homes and be a small part of your journey. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Um, and I am Lindsey. We do solo episodes. We do solo episodes together. We do interviews here. And as I said, I sat down with Case Kenny today. So I want to get into it. This is he is someone that I have been following for a while now. He is on a mission to help people live more optimistic, mindful, and authentic lives. Since 2014, he has been writing and speaking and teaching practical ways to cultivate self awareness, build confidence, and really quiet the overthinking mind that I think many of us have. I know that's me. And in 2018, he started his podcast. So he's also an OG of sorts. His podcast is New Mindset Who Dis. And it has just resonated with millions of people all around the world. These are like 15 to 20-minute episodes that are they just pack a punch, and it's just him, which I love. I love, I love, I love. And it has really informed and inspired his writing and his books. So it all makes sense. It's all this like beautiful ecosystem of relationship work, both with yourself and with others. Um, and I'm really excited to talk about the opposite of settling today. So I just wanted to touch on what we talked about. I think this episode is going to resonate with every single one of you. We talked about this idea of the dependency paradox, which I thought was so interesting. So the idea of the dependency paradox is this: it's that the more secure you feel in love, the freer you feel you are to be independent. And as someone who was like anxiously attached and anxiously dating in my mid to late 20s, I know this to be true. I was so codependent with people. I was definitely affected by how they were, how they treated me, how they kind of set the temperature for the relationship. And I just realized when I like kind of came more into myself in my 30s and started to date people who really saw me and who felt a bit more peaceful, and grounded, that wow, like this secure love thing is actually making me feel more like myself, more independent, less like I need to like hold on to them so tight. And it was just a really incredible realization for me in my dating life. So we talk about that. We also talk about settling down versus settling up. Case's big thing is language. And so, I think we hear this idea of like settling down, and what does that mean? And I think subconsciously, so many of us think of settling down as like our life ends or life gets boring, or we have to compromise or give up things. And he has just this incredible reframe, this idea of settling up and how that changes the kind of relationship we should be looking for. And it's just really, really good. We also talk about just modern dating. I really got into it with him because I'm like, yo, I know my girls out there, they are dating, and a lot of us just feel burnt out dating. A lot of you feel like, there are no good people out there. You're not going to find your person. And he just has some really, really practical reframes, some practical tools and practices that you can be starting today in your dating experience that I think will really help this collective cynicism that I think a lot of us have adopted. Um, and really help us to clear the noise and actually believe in love again. um, we also talk about embracing chaos, embracing the opposite, and what that can do for our dating life and for our relationships, um, and how it can really help us to define what we really want in love. It was a fascinating point that I realized I was doing at the end of my season of being single. I started to date the opposite of what I thought I wanted. I started to do the opposite of what I've been doing all along. And man, oh man, I met some incredible people and I made some incredible connections, learned a lot about myself. It was like such a sweet spot of that season that I think set me up to now be with my husband and just kind of recognize that he was my person. Um, and I'll just finish here. We talk about so much, but I think another just point that I want to mention that we really dig into is this idea of compromise and how I think a lot of us feel like compromise is this inevitable negative part of being in a relationship. And I felt that way. I felt that even when I moved in with my husband for the first time. I was like, oh, wow. I gotta compromise and this feels like a death. And how do we approach those conversations? How do we set aside our ego for a moment and just really become that incredible listener, an incredible communicator, and keep love at the center of everything? And it's an art and we have to practice this. I don't think many of us are born with this ability to have the language for how we feel. And so we need to learn. So I think this conversation will help you in so many ways learn how to have the language, have the understanding of how you feel, of how you want to feel, of what you deserve. And it's just such a freaking good one. So thank you, Case Kenny, for joining me in the studio. The new book right here in my hands, The Opposite of Settling, is out now. This is for my girlies out there who are dating. This is for my girlies out there in relationship. It is so applicable. It is a guide to get everything you want out of love and life without losing your spark. That's the whole point. We want to remain bright. We want to remain ourselves, or at least walk back to ourselves and be in relationship at the same time. So such a good one. I can't wait for you guys to listen. Please follow us on YouTube, subscribe there because everything is on video here in the Almost 30 world. And I love watching on video. So do many of you. So subscribe on YouTube. You can follow us on Spotify, Apple Music, anywhere you find your podcast, we are there. And again, our book is on sale now, anywhere books are sold, like Amazon and Target, Barnes and Noble. I've been to a lot of local bookstores that are carrying our book, which is exciting. Thank you so much for supporting us there. And we will see you on the other side of this episode. If you're taking protein powder, you need to hear this. Okay, the Clean Label Project recently tested 160 top-selling protein powders in the US, and nearly half of them exceeded safety thresholds for lead. Half of them. That is insane. And the worst part, most brands won't even show you their test results. So not only are you possibly ingesting toxic contaminants daily, you're not even being told about it. That's why we are so big on Peori's products, especially their whey protein, the PW1 whey protein. I love the bourbon vanilla. It is
fantastic, so tasty. Every single batch is third-party tested against 200 plus contaminants. Peori never sells a product unless it passes. It's the only protein brand in the US with the Clean Label Project's transparency certification, which means you can scan a QR code right on the label and see the test results yourself. It's pretty incredible. Each serving has 21 grams of clean, minimally processed protein from pasture-raised cows. No hormones, no GMOs, no pesticides. It's high quality and you can taste the difference. Again, I love the bourbon vanilla flavor. I will mix this into a smoothie. I will put it in my coffee. It's smooth, it's not overly sweet, and doesn't have that like weird chalky aftertaste like so many other protein powders do. So make sure your protein powder isn't hiding nasty chemicals. We worked with Peori on an exclusive deal for you. They have other incredible supplements. They're incredibly high quality. I take their omegas as well as their magnesium. Go to peori.com/almost30. That's PUORI.com/almost30 and use the promo code almost30 at checkout to get 20% off. And if you choose the discounted subscription, you're getting almost a third off, which is incredible. That's PUORI.com/almost30, code almost30 at checkout. Have you noticed that fees are everywhere lately? Like you book a weekend rental and you have a cleaning fee. Buy concert tickets, there's a processing fee no one can explain. Even ordering delivery comes with a service charge. It's like we're getting nickel and dime just for living life. It's very annoying. And those fees feel especially frustrating when money's tight. That's why I love Chime. So with Chime, there are no monthly fees, no overdraft fees, and no minimum balance fees. It's basically banking that doesn't punish you for being a human trying to get ahead. Personally, I've had times where I was trying to stick to a budget and surprise bank fees totally threw me off. Chime gives me peace of mind. I know what's coming in, what's going out, and I'm not getting charged for just using my money. Banking shouldn't cost you money, and with Chime, it doesn't. Open your account in 2 minutes at chime.com/almost30. That's chime.com/almost30.
Chime is a financial technology company, not a bank. Banking services and debit card provided by the Bancorp Bank N.A. or Stride Bank N.A. Members FDIC. Spot and eligibility requirements and overdraft limits apply. Timing depends on submission of payment file. Fees apply at out-of-network ATMs. Bank ranking and number of ATMs according to U.S. News and World Report 2023. Chime checking account required.
Yeah. Okay, so I am so excited to be sitting with you live. Case and I have been Zooming lately because we're doing an event at Meta actually later today. But I'm just so taken by your work. And ironically enough, I feel like we have some just interesting overlaps in our life, our single period
Yeah.
in our 20s that was so formative and powerful. You wrote a book about it. And just now kind of coming into your 30s and really having this healthy, grounded understanding and also openness about learning always about relationships
Yeah.
and being in relationship with yourself and another person. So you've become, an expert for sure, but also just a really comforting and relatable voice in this space. So I'm like
Thank you.
super jazzed to sit down with
Yeah.
you and jazzed about the book. The
Thank
book,
you.
The
Thank you.
Opposite of Settling, is out now. I actually wanted to, because some people listening might not know about you, they probably do, but there might be some people who don't know you. And I'm always curious, um, were you always innately this person who seems to have like a very just, again, healthy understanding of relationship and kind of what we bring to relationship and kind of how to tend to that? Or did you have like your own experiences, fuck ups
Yeah.
that really helped to shape you and sculpt you into who you are today?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I would say I've definitely was never always this person. I mean, I think who I am today at 37 is the result of maybe like 3 or 4 complete reinventions. As a result of my work, I will say it's like I have found this beautiful sweet spot in life where my creative work has fueled my personal growth in like a really genuine way, not just like a tack it on top and say, oh, this is my purpose. Like I started the podcast when I was 29 and in 2018, really just in response to the fact that I didn't feel like I knew myself. Like I was very locked in my career. I worked in advertising technology sales. I worked my way up from account executive to regional vice president and did it for almost 11 years. I was good at it. I made money. I led the team, was very locked in to that as an identity. But when I looked around at like who I was like personally, as a human, as a man, as a brother, as a son, as a partner, as a friend, I was like, I don't have a sense of self. I don't have a North Star. Add to that, like, I feel like I was like unfair to myself, the way I spoke to myself, the way that I thought about myself, just like classic human stuff. And my inclination from that being, I always label myself a type A person, whether that's the right word or not, I don't know. But I was like, I need to figure this out. Like, this is crazy. How do I feel so confident in one area of life, but not in the others? Like, I want to be the same person in every area of life. So I started the podcast, and like in a very like meta way, given that's what I do now, that was my solution. 2018, as I'm sure you know, OG podcaster.
Yeah.
The further we go back in time, the more it was like a vulnerable thing because not as many people podcasted, and to do it adjacent to a career and to be vulnerable on it was just like, to me, I saw it as like a very vulnerable thing. And I was like, I'm going to figure my stuff out by sitting down, not having guests on the pod, because that was the problem. I didn't want to just emulate other people. I'm going to sit down, I'm going to take a topic, a question of vulnerability, and I'm just going to beat it up for 20 minutes. And really, the rest is history from there, I suppose. One reflection being mindfulness is a muscle. The more you practice it, the better you get. Two, I realized what I was doing, which was a practical form of mindfulness, introspection, surrendering, and non-judgmental attitude toward my feelings. And yeah, I think just the more I sat down and would talk about myself and what I feel and what I believe, the more clarity I got, the more that completely changed my relationship with myself. And then to your question, the more it changed my relationship with relationships, I suppose. You know, classic 30s dude, avoidant, threatened by the permanence of a relationship, the loss of identity, the concept of independence, all these like things, and just like a smoothie of insecurity. I think all that, you know, changed for me. Obviously, like I wrote the book from this current perspective. I wrote a book called Singular is Your Superpower from the younger perspective. But yeah, I mean, I think everything has changed through the introspection. It's been, you know, it's always interesting to like, go back and look at some of my younger work and just to see the evolution of it. So yeah, but it all started with like the creative endeavor. And then like even going back even further, like now with what I do, and I'm very grounded in like one specific thing, which is helping people to be more mindful, to create optimism in their lives through words, through emotional vocabulary, through the way that we speak to ourselves, literally word choice. And I go back in time, I majored in Chinese and Arabic in college. It's a very random thing for a pale Midwesterner to do. But I was always just drawn to it. And it was one of those things where I was like, I'm just going to do it. And now, or 15 years later, I'm like, oh, it kind of makes sense why I've always been drawn to language, the subtext of language, the energy of language, the way that the words you use to describe your feelings dictate how you experience the feeling. Like it's one of those like connect the dots looking back type things.
Yeah.
That's the long-winded answer.
No, yeah, I want the long-winded. I think language is just, Krista and I talk about it a lot, just the ability to communicate in relationship is an art, you know, and it's underrated. And I think it's somewhat, especially in this day and age where so many of us are kind of like very sunk into our devices, we're typing things, we're not necessarily using our voice in a way that we might have prior to all of this technology in our pockets and at the ready, though I think it can be a tool. But I'm just curious what you have found in your work and just talking to your audience. What do you think is the reason so many people don't have the vocabulary to describe how they feel or what they're moving through, or to, you know, really communicate in relationship in a healthy way?
Yeah. Well, I would say a couple things. The first, and I won't like boo-hoo social media. I'm a big social media guy, big fan. I'm not one of those like it's ruined everything type person. But I will say there, like we do grasp on to the words that are in vogue that we see on social media, right? People all the time talk about narcissists, talk about anxiety, true and valid words and feelings and labels, of course. But we tend to grasp onto these things that are apparent and just rampant online, which is fine. It's good to be inspired by these things. But these are like, I call them forest and tree words. A word like anxious, for instance, that is a forest word. That is a high level zoomed out word. The reality is, yeah, you might feel anxious, and that might be the right word for some people, but usually I found the right word is a tree word, something more specific. It's you're misunderstood, or you're burned out, or you're feeling XYZ, something more specific. And I just think with social media and with this great renaissance of wellness and therapy language, we tend to grasp onto those words because they're just apparent and they're out there. And we see other people talk to them and we relate to their experience, so we use their word. And that's a fine starting point. I just encourage people to go to the more specific word, and then also to take time and really think about how you feel, as opposed to labeling the feeling first. Like, there's so much research and psychology around the priming of your experiences before you experience it, based on the way that you label the emotion that you think you're about to have. Like, the one that I always reference is, I read it in was summarized in Harvard Business Review. Is basically, these researchers had these two groups of college students all do the same thing in two different groups. For one group, they said, hey, instructions, you're going to go into this room one by one. You're going to be isolated in the room. You're going to do some tasks. Afterwards, we're going to ask you some questions. The other group, they said, hey, you're going to go in this room one by one. You're going to have some me time to do a task. Afterwards, we're going to ask you some questions. So they were priming their being alone in the room as either isolation or me time. And you could kind of see where I'm going with that when they asked these questions afterwards, which were engineered to kind of just test emotional self-sufficiency and just mentalities towards positivity and joy. The group that was told it was me time, overwhelmingly so, was more positive and joyful than the group that was isolated. They did the same thing. It was just primed within the context of two different words. So like, the words you use to describe a feeling, the words you use to describe a future feeling dictates how you experience it. And I like, that's kind of like a boring phrase, like, okay, but like it really does. Like, if you think about it, the language that you use to describe something then dictates how you experience that thing. And like, my work isn't so much about, oh, let's just slap a better word on something. It's about and I have like a whole sentence structure that I encourage people to follow. It's more around the work of identify the feeling, pay respect to the feeling, comma, uplifting ability to move away from the feeling. Uplifting phrase about the feeling not being permanent. So like, how do those two things living in harmony, I think, is how we can really evolve our emotional vocabulary to say, a part of me feels this way, but a lot of people don't get to the but, and a lot of people don't speak in a part of me feels. Most people don't even speak in feels, they speak in I ams. So there's a lot there, but it really is a word choice.
We over-identify with our emotions so often. And it just makes me think of dating today, where, you know, I have a lot of incredible girlfriends who are single and dating. And I feel like half of them have the, kind of like, this sucks. Like, no good guys, I can't find anybody, or like, you know, it's just a drag, or it's so much work, or da 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 da. And then the other half is having an experience of like, so much fun. It's kind of an adventure. Like, I'm meeting new people. Worst case scenario, I meet someone that like we connect, but maybe it's not my person. So I guess, what would you say to, because we have a lot of female listeners who are single, dating, especially in cities. What would you say to them if their mindset is a little bit of, ugh, this sucks?
Well, I think the first thing is understandable. Like, we're not going to slap a label on it and be like, well, I just haven't met my person, la-di-da. Like, I understand that. And it's easy for me to come from a perspective of, oh, everything's fine. So first, a little bit of empathy. And then I would say two things. I would say a deeper reflection, and then a more practical one. On the deeper side, like, I think a lot about manifesting and just like the way that we speak about the world and then the way that we speak about what we want. You know, I don't really know what manifesting means, to be honest. Like, it's one of those things that means different things to different people. For me, all manifesting is making sure that the space between how you describe your current reality and the reality you want to receive, that it's logically connected. So I struggle with the logic of having a statement that says, there are no good men left in New York City, comma, but I want a good man. Those two things, I struggle to have those two things be true at once, right? So I just really encourage people to at least, you know, formulate sentences that are logically created, in that I'm frustrated that I haven't met a good person, but there's a good person out there for me. Like,
Yeah.
and I know that's a little performative and cheesy, but like, let's
that's
at
true.
least with the way that we speak to ourselves,
Yeah.
allow for the reality we want to receive, be connected to the reality that we are living in. Otherwise, if we say there are no good this, all men are this, all women are this, but I want a soulmate, how are those two things connected?
Yeah.
So a little bit of reinforcing reality through the way that we speak to ourselves. On the more practical side, I mean, again, straight man, it's easy for me to be like, it'll happen, whatever. The realities of men and women are different. I will say, though, I wrote Single is Your Superpower in 2020 as a reaction to a lot of my younger work as I was formulating my worldview. Was I would ask older generations questions, 60 plus, to try to just get some life perspective. And I would usually hit them with the question of like, what do you regret? And I heard so many answers from older people, heard a lot of answers about what they regretted in the scope of love and relationships. And 99.9% of them were regrets within dating the wrong person, staying with the wrong person, having kids too early, feeling stuck, revolving your life around love. I never heard an answer of I regret being single. And I just always thought that was like a powerful anecdote about just, some looking back, connecting the dots type advice. But like, do with that what you will, but it's always stuck with me about like where regret comes from. I have usually found it comes from the things that we force, the things that we rush, the things that we search out of validation for, all these things. So perhaps take those two mindsets in tow and there would be a third one, tail end of, I call it your Renaissance era, which is when you step into a reality where your definition of love is expanded far beyond that of just a relationship with someone. Like, not to be like too spiritual, but like,
You're in the right place.
love is an amazing purpose of life, but there's many kinds of love, and also giving love is a major purpose. Receiving it hopefully comes from it, but like, there's love of art and music and people and creation and flowers. I mean, like, we are just very wrapped up in this one kind of love because it's the most validating love. It's the love that gives back. And, I try to encourage people who are really just very pressured and focused on finding the love that gives back to maybe just expand the definition a little bit.
Yeah.
And see how that helps with their mental health. Literally, it is not a Band-Aid solution, but it's something just to give you a little bit more patience. And then with the belief that you will find your person, because that's majorly important. But it's the path getting there. It's just, it's an exhale and exercise.
It's profound. I think we put all of our eggs in the relationship basket to bring us that love that we feel like we have never had or need to survive. And not that relationships aren't important. They absolutely are. We're human beings. We're relational beings. But yeah, I love the perspective of just kind of opening up the aperture to life. There's so many things around us that we can find love for and find the beauty in. And it literally kind of like trains your cells to like recognize it. So when I was single for such a long time, I was like, I had to do just this, understand what in my life did I really love? Why did I love it? And then it almost like helped to train me when people would come in and I would date. And then eventually my husband came in to actually recognize what that feels like rather than like, I think this might be the one, or I'm not sure. I'm thinking of like, kind of all the external things that I think I should believe about love. Rather, I'd like really felt into what does love mean for me?
Yeah. And that's the most important step, because if you skip that, how do you know if that partner is right for you or not?
I know.
Like, the whole thesis of the book and like my whole ethos of relationships is the lens that you need to look through is, does this person make me feel like more of myself? That's the question, right? And it then begs the question of, do you know yourself? Right. And if you've always been dating to be liked and validated, and because that's what you do, and because you want to have kids, and because you want to start a family, you've likely skipped that step. Yeah. The most important lens to be able to look at this person and say, is this person right for me or not? It has to go beyond like, do we get along? Do we laugh together? Important things that are maybe symptoms of them seeing you. But if you don't know yourself, how do you know if they amplify that sense of self? Sure. Like in the book, I referenced the work of James Hillman, The Soul's Code, which he talks about your essence. Like, we all have an essence about us. This is a thing in us that was there from the day we were born. It's something that might make us feel weird or too passionate or too intense or quirky or an outsider. There's something about each one of us, not pandering with a statement like that, but there is something about each one of us that's got a spark to it, a little bit of
For
pop
sure.
and pizzazz. And we work a lot in life to bury it and dim it in light of being liked instead of being seen. And he likens it to the idea of like it's an acorn inside all of us, and you plant the acorn, and you could hope that it'll become a banana tree, but it won't. It needs to become an oak tree. And eventually you will realize that in life, hopefully sooner rather than later. And it's your job to step into that essence sooner so that you could say, does this person amplify that essence? But like, what is the essence? I mean, that becomes the question. And that work kind of has to be done on your own independently.
Yeah.
And the amazing thing about your person is they will certainly help bring out the final form of that. I talk about that in the book, the idea of chiseling away, and I call it it's called the Michelangelo phenomenon, about how it brings out the final form of your ideal self, your ideal essence. But we have to start there. It's like cart and horse
Yeah.
type conversation.
Definitely. What was your definition or idea of love that you kind of were bringing to this work when you first started?
That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, it was probably more along the lines of like it's just something you do, like it's the expectation, and I think that's why like a lot of my aversion to commitment was within the context of losing my independence.
Yeah. I think
And
that's so many men too,
it's a
and
I
women,
was
I
gonna say
think, today.
it's a classic male.
Classic.
Oh, I'm a tortured man type. It's crazy.
Don't tie me down,
Oh,
ball and
I
chain.
can't do this. I have to, get on my horse and explore the West. What? But I genuinely had that attitude. And chapter 1 of the book is about how the right person enhances your independence. And I reference the idea of the dependency paradox in child rearing and upbringing with your child, that the closer your relationship is with your child, generally speaking, the more independent the child's willing to be, because they know that mama's got their back,
Yes.
dad has their back, right? It's, biologically almost baked in. But I always thought that when I came across that, I was like, well, shouldn't that be the case with a relationship? That not codependence, but the healthy kind of dependence, that when you know your partner, you're that close with each other, that you should have independent interests, independent hobbies, independent essences. And that's the beauty of life. And I'm lucky to have found that with my partner and my girlfriend, of the way that we are quite independent, literally, with kind of, she's a DJ, I write, and like we're just independent creatively, but also soulfully. And just like, it's a beautiful thing that made me realize that my entire thinking in my 20s was wrong.
Yeah.
And I think it's tough. It requires a lot of vulnerability on both halves, because I think a lot of people nowadays see independence and they're like, whoa, something's wrong with the relationship. Why is he out at dinner and she's doing this, or she's in Vegas and he, like, whoa, it's like, what's going on here? So it's I think requires some rewiring of this social aversion to independence. So that was probably operated from that a lot in my 20s, and used that as rationale for repeatedly starting over and just like letting relationships die. I think that was my kind of classic MO of like not wanting to hurt her feelings. So just like, we'll just let it fizzle, which is embarrassing in retrospect, but probably came from that belief.
Yeah. And it's also just on that point, when you don't lean in those moments of like, I think either this is not working or we could actually improve this. It requires you to be very honest with yourself, very honest with the other person, have the language.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people don't have that, or don't want to do that, or think it's just too much in the moment. It's very like, it can be overstimulating, I think, to people who have been avoidant, but it's really great practice for when you're in the relationship that hopefully will last a long time, because that happens all the time, and it actually strengthens your connection. I was gonna kind of add on to this conversation around kind of that avoidant, anxious attachment style that seems to happen a lot with men and women, and typically being the avoidant, but I know that is not true across the board. But where, I think women, very generally speaking, I'll speak for myself, I felt like I was just chasing after the feeling and
Mhm.
the feeling of being validated. Um, and I was not actually taking in the behavior in front of me and how they were making me feel, even though I was chasing the
Yeah.
feeling.
Yeah.
So when their behavior was making me feel terrible, I was not registering it as actually this is not healthy and this is not my
Yeah.
person. Like
Yeah.
let's pivot or move on. I was almost idealistic and like just wanting to almost like change them and fix it so that it could become that.
Yeah.
Do you find that a lot where people go into a relationship wanting to change the person in order to kind of fit their ideals, even though it's like totally not a match?
Yeah. I think that's human nature. Like we
Yeah.
want the potential so bad that we're willing to sit in the muck, and we wanna earn it in a
Yeah.
sense. And we've confused a lot of concepts, namely like sacrifice and compromise, which are fully required of you in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
But we skirt the line so much so between compromise and like self-betrayal that it becomes conversations like that. Likely because, to your point, it does become a chicken and egg conversation around the feeling and the choice.
Right.
Like many smarter people than me, I've said that like love isn't just a feeling, it's a choice, it's a behavior, it's the small things that make you feel a certain way. But the chase of feeling inevitably sets you up to fail. It's
Mm-hmm.
like I always talk like my goal in life is not to be happy, because that is a crumbling foundation on a house. There's so many things that will make you unhappy that are out of your control. So to
Right.
make that your North Star of, am I happy or not? Is life good or not? Is inevitably it's not going to be, and then you just devolve.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think the relationship has to be looked at through the lens of choices and behaviors, and then looking back. I mean, I think the most powerful thing we have are our past relationships, what we learned, and specifically the promises we made from them, and then to say in this moment with the way that I'm compromising, is this the opposite of what I promised myself I wouldn't do again in the future? Like that has to be the barometer for self-betrayal, the line between those two things. And yeah, I think it's obviously nuanced and depends on the scenario to say like, yes, this person, maybe does need some time. And I think, to your point about tough conversations, I think one of the most essential conversations to have that a lot of people don't have, because it seems like if you have to have this conversation, then the relationship is flawed at a fundamental level, which I don't believe is true. And it comes from the idea that like when you enter into a relationship with someone, they are trying their best to love you in a way that makes you feel loved, right? And because you have that connection, they're genuinely trying to do it. But most people operate from the love that they want to receive. And so they give you that love. They give you the love that their former partner liked to receive.
Right.
So we're talking about love languages, gift giving, the things that I like to receive, I give to you, hoping it's what you want to receive. The love I give to you is the love that my ex received, and she liked it. Fantastic. More often than not, it's not going to land with you. But you recognize the effort, and you see that I do want to make you feel loved, but I'm missing the mark. For you to have a conversation with me and say, I know you love me, but I don't feel loved by you. What a emotional conversation that seems so selfish. It seems so selfish to say that. But I think the healthiest relationship is built on the back of a conversation like that. Your willingness to say that and not throw the relationship out because you have to say it.
Yeah.
And then his or her response to it and say, okay, well then tell me how you want to be loved. Tell me what makes you feel loved. And to have the ego removed from it,
Yeah.
and then have your ego removed from it in a way that isn't like, well, I shouldn't have to tell him. And then if he's doing it, he's just doing it to appease me. Like a lot of this little conversations, I think the context of a conversation like that is everything.
Yes.
And I feel like we don't get there, or people don't even have the self-awareness to know that this doesn't make me feel loved. Like I should feel loved by this. He's giving me gifts and quality time, but like to actually sit and say, well, it makes me feel loved. It goes back to the conversation of the essence. So I think all in all, like we have to be willing to sit in that on both sides.
Sure.
And not be threatened by a conversation like that.
Yeah. Being in relationship is so much about like taking the ego and being like, you over here
Yeah.
right now. Like we are,
Yeah, for sure.
where you truly listen.
Yeah.
You truly kind of you're not listening to like just react in a moment. You're listening to truly feel into, okay, maybe I've been missing something, or maybe, maybe this is kind of bringing up something that I've experienced in the past, and I really haven't like tended to it or, done it a different way.
Mhm.
It's removing the ego in so many ways. Yeah, I love the love languages example, um, and just being willing to have that hard conversation. And we've talked about this a little bit on the podcast, just kind of that the mark of a conscious, let's call it conscious relationship. We talk about that a little bit, where a conscious relationship isn't going to be the relationship that's like, wow, everything is just smooth, perfect. There should be that level of peace and feeling of home, I believe. And it's also going to be a safe place for like a lot of learning
Yeah.
and challenges, and within that container, you're able to work
Yeah.
through them. Have you had, I'm curious just about your own personal experience with finding and being in a relationship where you feel like it is really rooted in being yourselves and feeling secure and safe with one another. But did you have like that kind of tipping point moment of like, oh, wow, this is like what it's really like to be in a relationship like this?
Oh, for sure. Well, I would say two things. For one, off the piggyback of the love languages, like when my girlfriend and I first started dating, like 3 years ago, I would always, to show my love for her, I would always give her books. Because to me, it's a very
Yeah,
personal, I see you thing.
totally.
And I just kept giving her books and books and books. And then one day she was like, yo, stop giving me books. It
She's
was
like,
such,
I can't read.
it was, yeah, she was like, yeah. I was like, what is it? It
No.
was so funny, but it was in that moment where I was like, whoa, like that was like more honest than anyone has
Yeah,
ever been with me.
totally.
And it was a very eye-opening, like, whoa, like this is really cool. Like
Wow.
we could have this conversation and I wasn't offended by that. I feel like younger
Mm-hmm.
case would have been like, well, you like that's crazy. Like I put so much effort into this. Like
Yeah.
you take it. And I don't know, maybe that was just like my growth, but like that was a big catalyst for me. And then I think also like with our relationship, it like really snapped my eyes open to the fact that like the purpose of life and the purpose of love is playfulness. And I really
Mm-hmm.
think we've lost sight of that plot. Like things are very serious nowadays,
Totally.
and everything is serious. The economy and politics and the world and people and
Mm-hmm.
finance, everything is serious, and it should be, I suppose. But like love, I think should be the one area that maintains its playfulness
Yeah.
as best we can. And not only because that sounds like a nice thing, but like there's a lot of research and science around like what drives attraction and what makes resilient partnerships. And it is so much so around playfulness, shared and created humor, not just like
Mm-hmm.
laughing like with my joke or your joke. It's like creating humor together, shared moments of these emotional bids for connection. Like that has to be the context of a relationship. And I think with Emily, my partner, it was like, wow, like I wrote it in the book, and then I was on a podcast with a comedian the other day, and they were just like dunking on me for saying this. But I wrote in the book that we're silly gooses, and
Uh-huh.
he was like, "You actually wrote that?" I was like, "Yeah, I did write that." But I mean, it's true. Like we don't like we take our love seriously and each other and our commitment, but like everything else is just through the lens
Yeah.
of humor and playfulness. And then the last point to your question is like I think a lot on like words and language and like poetic expressions, but like the idea is like the love that you deserve is where you feel like you're coming home to yourself and someone else at the same time. This idea of home, safety, peace, vulnerability,
Mm-hmm.
playfulness, like that being the essence of a relationship,
Yeah.
but it's both of those things. Again, back to yourself. You're coming home to yourself. You're not getting distant from yourself, and you're coming home to
Mm-hmm.
someone else as well. Like I think that's like a nice image of the environment where you could have these types of
Yeah.
conversations where playfulness can flourish.
Yes,
Yeah.
totally. My husband's definitely taught me a lot about playfulness
Nice.
and in conflict too, where we can have a really like serious conversation where, we do our thing. And also a few hours later, we can kind of be like, bring humor into what we just talked about, meaning kind of bringing the like heaviness of it. Cause sometimes I can be so judgmental or critical of what I'm
Yeah.
dealing with or unable to really get. And I think he brings into the room just this like, you know, sometimes it is kind of silly. Like at
Yeah.
the end of the day, like these are very human things, and it's not to like, lessen their importance, but it's also just like we're humans. It's all good. Like we can kind of move on
Yeah.
and not feel like this is defining us for the next month and like we
Yeah.
gotta
But that's a
be
beautiful
so
sentiment
heavy.
too, because that's a reflection of what I think allows for you to be playful, which is simplicity.
Yeah.
Like a healthy relationship unlocks a level of simplicity that you just don't get in life without the right
True.
person. So like this is why relationships are important, because suddenly you have this person where life is simpler in the sense of it's us, it's we make a decision together. It's we've got
Yes.
each other's back. Like that kind of simplicity, I think
It's
is
not as much
it's
guessing and
underrated.
complication. Yeah.
Exactly. And
Hmm.
when things are simple, things are funny.
Yeah. 100%.
Okay, I've always been someone who loves the idea of adventure. Like, give me a new trail to run or a random side street to wander down, and I'm totally in. But as a mom, I've also realized the real adventure is just getting out the door with enough energy to keep up with the day. And that's where having a go to nourishing routine honestly has saved me. Enter Kachava, AKA my not so secret weapon. It's a whole body meal shake that somehow manages to be packed with 85 plus superfoods and still tastes really good. I'm a chocolate girl though, through and through, but sometimes I'll do the vanilla with almond milk or frozen banana and a little cinnamon. And it's like a fancy smoothie from a cafe without the $16 price tag, if you know what I mean. But what sold me, it's not just protein, though it has 25 grams of clean plant-based protein. It's also got fiber, adaptogens like maca, superfoods like sacha inchi, and even ingredients like goji berry and chia that I used to buy separately and never use, let's be honest. So I'm so happy they're in there. They're just all mixed in. I usually whip my own up with a quick breakfast or post-workout shake, and it actually fills me up without that weird powdery aftertaste I've had with other drinks. And I know you know what I mean. I feel focused, satisfied, and like I actually gave my body something it wants to say thank you for. So if you're playing curious but not fully vegan, no worries. Kachava is for everyone. Plus, they've got a love it guarantee, so it's risk-free to try. But I have a feeling you're going to get hooked. Fuel your day with Kachava. Go to kachava.com and use code almost30 for 15% off your next order. That's KACHAVA.com, code almost30 for 15% off. This episode is brought to you by IQ Bar, our exclusive snack sponsor. IQ Bar is the better for you plant protein-based snacks made with brain-boosting nutrients to refuel, nourish, and satisfy hunger without the sugar crash. I brought a bunch of IQ bars with me the other day. I had a busy day. I had a few interviews, I had an event, and I just knew that I needed to make sure I was nourishing myself with food that I knew the ingredients were clean, were good for me, were great for my brain and my body, would satiate me, and were yummy. So I ended up having 2 IQ bars that day. I had one mid-morning and then mid-afternoon. It was just a great interim snack. So these are plant protein bars. I like getting my protein in any way that I can. High quality ingredients, like I mentioned. And it's totally free from gluten, dairy, soy, GMO, and artificial sweeteners. And they come in 9 delicious flavors. My favorite is the banana nut, always and forever. But they have flavors like chocolate chip and chocolate sea salt, toasted coconut chip, lemon blueberry, peanut butter chip. They do it right. They're so delicious, so chewy. You're going to love the texture. If you don't believe me, there's over 25,000 5-star reviews and counting. So just know that. They also have hydration mixes and mushroom coffees in addition to their brain and body boosting bars. And right now, IQ Bar is offering our special podcast listeners 20% off all IQ Bar products, plus get free shipping. To get your 20% off, text ALMOST, ALMOST, to 64,000. Text ALMOST to 64000. That's ALMOST to 64,000. Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details.
Yeah.
And like if this is your person, and you're together for a long time, it's like, I think humor also just like creates a momentum in the relationship where holding on to and not letting things go brings a heaviness and kind of a stuckness to it. And
Yeah.
like the humor just injects kind of this like life and
Yeah.
fluidity. But I love that. You mentioned this earlier, but I wanted to kind of pick it apart just a little bit more, especially for the girlies out there who are feeling like they are on their independent tip and men or, the partner they are seeking need to kind of like live up to like where they're at. I think a lot of women in our audience feel like they're on their, health game, spirituality, spiritual journey. They are like just up leveling, right? Um, and I believe many of them want to find someone who's like, quote, on their level.
Yeah.
Can we bring some like realness to this? Because I think sometimes, and I've done this in the past when I was dating, I set these expectations that no one's truly going to meet. So what would you recommend for someone who is like really feeling incredible single, doing the work on themselves, feeling like they want to attract someone at that level? Is that possible? And what can we be very realistic about going into dating?
I think it's absolutely possible.
Yeah.
I'm not a big like gender war guy, but I don't think there's any denying that like men are increasingly falling behind in a sense. Like women are more educated than men. Like there is a major shift as far as like what's going on with men, and I'll leave that there. But I would say that for context, like it's a totally fair thing to be like, I am leveling up here, and it doesn't seem like my potential partners are. That I don't think that's filled with as much ego as some people think and say.
Right.
I think that's a fine statement. I think where things get tricky is when you do have expectations that are aligned with very specific things that kind of cloud your judgment. So I have a chapter in a book where I talk about dating from expectation and dating from standards. And my whole pitch was I say have no expectations but high standards, not low expectations, because that's weird. No expectations. Expectations in the form of things like how fast the relationship should go, dare I say how tall someone should be, things like that, more like superficial timing, boxes related expectations. Just from the observation, of course, that I think you talk to a lot of people, and there's so much anecdotal evidence around he wasn't my type, she wasn't my type. I thought this, but this is what drew me in. So I think really try to remove yourself from the expectation game and lock yourself into the standard game. And standards should come from the way that you're uplifting and upgrading your life and operate from there. I think that's fine. And I would honestly leave it there, because I think, of course, you can absolutely find someone on your level, but make sure the concept of level is not grounded in ego of like, well, I'm making 100,000, so they need to be making this and that. Like, yes, okay, well, so what I hear is ambition is important to you. When we can look at ambition through the lens that isn't just measured by a number, things like that. And so I hate people getting grass is greener syndrome based on expectations and based on like a little push of the ego. So I think, it does require some reflection, but you absolutely can. And, my whole pitch is create a life you love, and love will meet you there. Wishful thinking, perhaps, maybe a little bit, but I genuinely believe it, not only from the anecdote of like people are drawn to energetic, radiant people who are locked into loving life. And there is also science behind that. Like I talk in the book about how overwhelmingly so you are more likable than you think you are. It's called the liking gap. And overwhelmingly so, non-conforming traits are attractive. Namely, the thing that you think makes you too much, to this, to that, maybe too ambitious or too up-leveled in your life, and I need to chill out. That is the thing that will make you attractive. So I think pump the brakes, create a life we love, put yourself out there, date from standards, not expectations, and then love will meet you there. I think it's a healthy mentality. It doesn't force anything. And it does help you also create the most important lens, which is that of reciprocity. Here's what I bring, here's what I give. Is there a version of that that's given back? Malleable, but is it given back? I think that's a healthy mindset.
Yeah, I love that. And I think creating a life you love also just totally changes what you believe about yourself and what you deserve. Like you said, it's just it completely shifts what you're attracting. It's a little magical in the moment. You're like, wait, I'm actually attracting people who like respect me and are like, kind of in a
on here, but that's like, it's like the purpose is to love your life.
Yes.
So if the purpose is to live my life, then someone who comes into my life should help me love my life more. But if I'm not loving my life to begin with, then how will I know if that person's helping me love life even more? So
Right.
it just
And
comes
most
back to
likely,
the
if you
whole.
don't love your life, you're waiting for the person to come in to make your life better. And then that
I
creates,
think that's a great topic too. I talk about it
yeah.
again with language. Like we have this language built around I want to build a life with someone. And I think that's
Yeah, I
fine
love this in
language,
the book.
right? It's like cool. Building a life is a beautiful sentiment, and you are building a house, building a legacy, building memories. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. But the subtext of the word "build" is that if you need a partner to build your dream life, what does that mean you're doing in the meantime? You're not capable of building your dream life on your own. Sure, if children or partnership are part of that, that's important to go after, but that's not the totality of building your dream life. So I say in the book, it's like, let's drop that kind of language, and you build your dream life on your own, and then you find someone and you do life together.
Right.
And again, that sounds like a small thing, but I think subconsciously it's really important. You put so much pressure on yourself with, I want to build my dream life. Well, I need the partner to build a dream life. It just becomes this scarcity mindset, this rushing mindset. So I think locking in on build my dream life, do it with someone else,
Yeah.
amplified by someone else.
Yeah, completely. You also talk in the book about embracing a little chaos,
Yeah.
which I thought was interesting. Can you describe what that means?
Yeah, I mean, from my own anecdote of many reinventions, personally, career wise, relationship wise, is like clarity comes from the chaos.
Yeah.
Clarity doesn't come from comfort. Clarity doesn't come from choosing the same thing over and over again. I'm a big proponent of doing opposites. Like if you are frustrated and you're like, there's no good this, or every date I go on is bad, that's a fair statement. I wish that wasn't the case. Can we inject a little chaos into our process? Can we do the opposite of what we've been doing? In the sense of if you've been saying no to coffee dates because you feel like it's a lazy endeavor and men need to take you to a Michelin restaurant, let's just try the opposite of that. If you've been dating a certain type, try the opposite of that. If you've been locked in a certain routine and diet and workout, just inject a little bit of opposite into that. It's not in the book because recently I came across this. There was this social scientist who was really interested in what separated swimmers across talent, what made one swimmer an Olympian, and what made one swimmer stuck in D1, and also what made a average, 34-year-old weekend swimmer average. And he looked at all of their efforts over years, and he hung out with Olympic champions, college, all the way down. And his anecdote, and I'd have to dig into the study specifically about where he got this data to support it, but he said that he found on average that an Olympic champion swimmer didn't train more often than an average swimmer. What the difference was is that the Olympic champions trained differently. They did just entirely different training regimens, and they had very different mindsets towards the sport.
Wow.
And that sounds like a crazy thing to claim, that like if I was a swimmer, that on Olympic, like Ryan Lochte, Michael Phelps, I trained the same amount, but they trained differently. But that was the claim of the study. It was really interesting. Again, I think in the terms of different, like what can you do differently? How can you inject a little bit of chaos, good chaos that gives you clarity that could only benefit you? And I think sometimes that's exactly what we need. We need to shake things loose a little bit. We need to shake ourselves loose. Maybe it's from expectations, what a first date should look like, how fast the relationship should go, who we should say yes to, who we should say no to. Just open yourself up a little bit and see what happens.
Yeah, I completely agree. I remember in dating, I was dating this or chasing after the same type of guy for
Yeah.
a long time in the same context, whether it was like I worked at bars in New York City when I was in my mid 20s. And so we would meet there.
Yeah.
Or I would kind of fall into the only doing dating on apps
Yeah.
for a period of time. Worked in some cases, not in others, but I knew that it needed to change. It just wasn't working. And when I opened up to the possibility specifically to step outside of my list, the surface level part of my list, whether it was height, what they did for a living, where they're from, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
I mean, I met some amazing people.
Yeah.
And like, if they would have walked into the room, I would have been like, "Eh." But then we sit down and we talk and we connect. I'm like, oh, this is where the attraction is.
Yeah.
It's not in the typical guy that I'm attracted to. And it just taught me so much about like letting go of what I've grown up to think is going to be like my person, my Prince Charming, even like my life.
Yeah.
I never expected to do what I do, be where I am, like any of it I did not plan.
Samesies.
You
Yeah.
know, I think a lot of people are nodding. Like,
Yeah.
I thought I was going to be married by 26, have
sure.
kids
Yeah.
by 30, you know? And it's totally different and it's so much better.
Yeah.
And I think the same goes for
Add that to
dating.
the pile of anecdote that I hear.
Yeah.
It's always true. And I think there's a beautiful reflection in that too, because you met some of these people when you opened yourself up to opposite and different.
Yes.
And they weren't permanent soulmates for you. And
No.
yet here you are able to reflect upon those temporary people with lightfulness and,
Oh,
and
yeah.
cheerfulness. But I think that is a somewhat unique trait in that we have this mentality where if they didn't become your soulmate and you didn't lock them in,
Right.
that whole experience is in the dumpster.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think a lot of that comes down to just like our aversion to nuance and like be sitting in the discomfort of in-between experiences.
Yeah.
And just like we want to label good and bad. But I think, and I always forget his name, there's a French philosopher who says cheerfulness is the most certain sign of wisdom. And I think cheerfulness in retrospect is such a wise, emotionally mature mentality to have, to be able to look back at a relationship
Yeah.
that didn't go the whole mile and to still say, oh, that was a beautiful experience. I really like that memory I had. And even if the relationship ended in a dumpster fire, to be able to look back and say, man, I really liked the way we were on date one. I didn't like what became of it and there was nothing redeeming of it, but like that mentality, I think is so rewarding because it opens you up to appreciating love, temporary love. And I think without that, you just become very closed off, very outcome driven, and it robs you of this beautiful thing of life, of giving love, receiving love, not being permanent, but still appreciating the memory. I talk about it in the book, the way that we think about memories, the peak end idea, the way that we evaluate the peak or the end, and we construct worldviews on it. I think to me, it's the ultimate endeavor of patience and cheerfulness. And I think it would benefit everyone. So, I mean, what you said is
Definitely.
beautifully described anecdotally.
And you describe it in the book as just that failed love moving you forward. So we think it's like failed and it didn't work out, but I think that's where it switched for me, where I started to recognize that one, I'm working on myself and I'm attracting a different type of person, or I'm like able to recognize a different type of person coming in. And I was also just appreciating things about people that I appreciated about myself. It was like this tandem thing happening. I was like in therapy and I'm also sitting down with people I never thought I would date and appreciating things about them that before I probably would have thought were annoying
Yeah.
or
And you
whatever.
would just dismiss them.
Yeah. And I think the key was literally being reflective after the fact and being like, wow, I actually loved how he was such a good listener.
Yeah.
Or I loved how he asked me questions and was like so engaged, or, how he kind of led and planned the date, but asked me, what I was interested in. Just little things that like told my brain, this feels good. This is like what we truly like and what makes us feel seen, etc. And then I was able to recognize it in like my person, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think what you just described is curiosity, which I think is another quality that we lose sight of when we're so rushed.
Yeah.
I had a call yesterday with a friend,
Mm-hmm.
a little younger than me, and he's got a date this week with this like 10 out of 10. And he was like, what do I do
Coach
on this
me up.
date? A little bit. First of all, I'm not the right guy to give you like, here's what to say. I was giving him some funny jokes that I thought were funny, but I was like, I said, dude, like, don't overthink it. Just be curious.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I mean,
I wasn't like, ask her questions because women want to talk about themselves. Like, be curious for two reasons. One, it's a sign of respect. And two, you are here to see if she's right for you. You're not here just to assume that she's perfect for you because she's hot.
100%.
But, like, you are there to be curious for your own self. So like curiosity going both ways, I think is like the ultimate way to enter into a relationship because it removes the expectation. It opens you up to everything you just mentioned. And it allows for connection. I think it's a beautiful mentality to operate from instead of, Lord knows what mentalities we're operating from nowadays of suspicion and cynicism.
So what you're saying just reminds me that like we're bringing this energy to the date. So it's not just in the like postmortem that we're like, suck, whatever. It's we're actually in the moment bringing that energy to the experience of we're judging. We're kind of seeing if they tick certain boxes. They're not this. Like I remember this very clearly. I'd be like, no, 2 minutes in. Okay.
Yeah.
And I would not, it's not to say that they were my person, but I would just write them off
Tune
so
out.
soon. And it's not doing me any good or giving them an opportunity to be themselves, to be comfortable, because I'm already like on to the next.
Yeah.
So I think just remembering that too, where like there, just like our essence we bring wherever we go, we bring that energy of like what we're expecting, kind of what we feel like they're not hitting in the moment. That is felt,
Yeah.
I feel like.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it comes back to the
Curiosity is the
curiosity, date to be seen, not just liked.
Yeah.
To quote my friend Jillian Turecki, who you probably know,
Mm-hmm.
she talks about how, the purpose of a relationship is to make you happier, not happy, right? So we're operating from a perspective of knowing ourselves, having happiness, amplification of that,
Yeah.
as opposed to dating from zero and hoping for completion in the form of some intense expectation or some intense role in their life. So I think, operating from what you already know with experience and with curiosity is just, it makes it more enjoyable.
Yeah. Okay. I wanted to ask as a last question. There's this like thing I think people do when they're dating. I did this where I'm like simultaneously trying to open my heart,
Mm.
but then also protect my heart.
Mm.
And then there are times when I feel like my heart's closed and I don't feel anything. And it's just this kind of like, what is safe? What can I do? What is the proper way to kind of approach dating and relationship as it relates to kind of that heart space, that vulnerability, that just tenderness? What do you have to say about that?
I have a lot to say about that.
Okay,
I
great.
think I understand that. Of
Yeah.
course, right. When you've had your heart hurt, when you've been betrayed, cheated on, broken, 180'd, like your human reaction is, how do I avoid this experience in the future? Of course, that's like evolution. That's why we're here. It's how we survived. And I think the mentality that most people take in the face of that is, hey, moving forward, I only give what I get. I only match. It's catch flights, not feelings type stuff. And I think that's really harmful towards ourselves when it's acted upon in a certain way. The whole I only match what I receive mentality, I think, is really, really limiting in the sense of we think it protects us, but it just makes us more passive. I think there's a huge practical upside for being the first person to give love, to give energy, to give enthusiasm. You lead with it.
Yeah.
Then you see what you return, and then you can match or even move on. But you lead with it for two reasons. One, the more aligned reason being, show yourself that you're in charge of your own life. You're not going to wait around for someone to give you interest. You're going to throw your whole self out there and you're going to see if it's given back to you. And if not, you're out. But also, like, when you give love and enthusiasm right off the bat, you are collecting data quickly.
Yeah.
You are creating a new lens to evaluate this person. Are they on my level? Back to your other question. When you give love and energy and enthusiasm, you say, okay, let's see if they've got the sauce or not. As opposed to the alternative of only matching, you are delaying that so substantially. It seems so silly to me sometimes. And I think you take that mentality and you park it next to a mentality of recognizing that, yes, okay, you've had your heart hurt and you are hurting. And there's a certainly timeliness to that, right? So take your time. But then from there, it's like, you have to ask yourself, is love worth the risk of having your heart hurt again? And if the answer is no, then you're probably not ready to date. And you have to find a reason to say, yes, it's worth the risk again. And I think there's a certain mentality that you have to adopt of wiping the slate clean the best you can, to not project to other people, to not allow for that illogical space between your reality and the reality you want to live. And I think you bring those two mindsets together, the practical of I get data quicker by giving myself and giving my heart again. And then also the deeper of, can I wipe the slate clean and not believe that a future person will hurt me in the same way? I think that's really the only way to move forward.
Yeah.
And it's tough, of course. I think it takes time and you shouldn't force yourself, and you should date from a perspective of why am I doing this again? I see a lot of people like, ouch, that hurt, ouch, that hurt. Well, I'm just going to keep swiping. Like, let's take some time here and really understand why we're doing it. I talk in the book about asking people why you're dating, and surprisingly, people don't have great answers. Doesn't need to be poetry, but I think a lot of people date from a scarcity, from a that's just what you do, from I don't want to be alone.
Yeah.
Like, are you dating from fear, or are you dating from love? It's a bigger topic. Love of yourself, love of life, love of amplification, love of abundance, like these kinds of topics. Or is it from fear? Fear of being left behind, fear of being unlovable. I think a lot of those things fuel a lot of these like avoidant, dismissive
For sure.
mentality. So somewhere in there is an answer, but I think it borrows from creating a new balance in your life, a balance of bringing no bullshit mentality with you from your past, but willingness to put yourself out there and be the first person.
Be the
I think that is
first.
like the ultimate
'Cause
life.
then you get the truth quicker.
Yes. And isn't that what we're after? Why
Yeah.
are you delaying the truth if it's going to hurt you regardless, or annoy you regardless,
Definitely.
frustrate you regardless?
And
Get
I
it
like
faster.
in one of your recent podcast episodes, you were talking about just like put out the truth ASAP, like
Yeah.
kind of come to the table like this is who I am, or this is like my vision for the future, like even going so far as that. And I think a lot of women are afraid to do that because they think they're going to be too much.
No.
But it's like,
I hear that so much.
be clear, at least at this point in my life where I'm like in my 30s, late 30s, and I'm like, yo, to my girlfriends, I'm like, be upfront. And what I've seen in 3 girlfriends that I can think of
Yeah.
off the top of my head, they have found their person.
You're a wealth of anecdotes that support all this stuff.
It's
so-
crazy. They're getting married, like
Yeah.
because they were like, I want kids.
Yeah.
I would love kids in the next 2 years. I have a dream of this. And the partner then shared theirs. And then they're able to kind of see where there's a match, where there's more conversation to be had. It's just, oh my God. So much less
the
bullshit.
entire endeavor of dating is to get to the truth faster. And I always say that like honesty, passion, intensity, clarity, it's a filter for the wrong people and a magnet for the right people. Like always, every single time, because the whole point is to get people into a category of really it should be yes or no, sometimes in the maybe, but like get as much information as you can,
Yes.
as possible as you can. And then on the women who date men note of the fear of being too much or coming off as too intense. So like, what is your objective with that then? If you're unwilling to disclose that, you're gonna you're gonna lure them in and then spring it upon them.
I think subconsciously women are afraid to put that out there because they'll scare them away. A lot of women are.
But if that would scare them away, they'd be the wrong person. for you, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's easy for us to say this, but I also think the other practical takeaway there is like for women, be upfront about what you want.
Yeah.
The right guy's going to receive it. Also, just very anecdotal, and you don't have to be like simping for your man, but like give compliments. Like I spend a lot of time on Reddit, which I think is, I don't know, I see it as a reflection of like average people. And there might be spectrums of that, but like I see thread after thread after thread of men. There's these threads where men are like, tell us about a compliment you received. Men, they're like, oh man, I had one back in 1995. Like men don't receive compliments that often. It's just different for men.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't deserve it as much. Who knows? But like you give a man a genuine compliment, it's going to land with him. So if you're like,
100%.
I'm not saying this along the lines of like trying to game and like trying to win someone over, but if like you really like a guy and you're up with what you want, throw him a compliment and see that puppy land for you. And it doesn't remove the male female lead and chase dynamic. You can give a man a compliment and still be the one being chased. I think women should try that more often.
Absolutely.
I mean, I have a shirt that I got in like 2007 that I still wear because I got a compliment on it. Like people remember this, like falling apart.
It's true.
Men remember it. So
and even in my marriage, I'm like, it goes a long way because you can get into such a like just a routine of like doing things the same way and like really missing moments to appreciate and moments to be like, wow, actually, just because you do that all the time doesn't mean like I can't be like, I love when you do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It goes along.
And that's what's going to keep a relationship together. Like,
yeah.
like
The
I
recognition.
talk in the book about the difference between consideration and declaration. Consideration is something like that, a small little compliment or me doing something small around the house or just small things. Declarations are the go on a big trip to celebrate our anniversary, or like a big dinner, big loud things that sometimes people, will put beside love bombing. But like the majority of a relationship needs to be built on small in between moments,
Yes.
moments of consideration. So I think the more that we can practice that type of behavior, giving and receiving, the more resilience the relationship is going to have.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, Case Kenny, I could go on forever. This has been so fun.
Quit yapping. Quit yapping.
No, it's been great. Congratulations on the book. The book is out now, The
Yes.
Opposite of Settling. You can
Yes.
get it anywhere books are sold. And I would love for you to read the quote that you
Right.
wrote
So I
down.
wrote you a quote. I like to do this with
That's
people I
sweet.
appreciate. So I feel like this will land with you. I just wrote, and you can keep it. I wrote, "There's magic in people who embrace being a hot mess of happiness instead of trying to be perfect." Certainly something I've heard you talk about before, about the chase for perfection.
Yeah.
And I think the idea of being a hot mess of happiness is like similar to what we were talking about with chaos, finding clarity in chaos, finding happiness in being a hot mess. I think is a beautiful anecdote. So I
I'm
told it a little
obsessed with
bit.
that. And
It's a little-
it's so freaking true. It is so true. I'm going to frame this. I've loved my time with you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
The book, who's this book for? Who's picking up this book?
It's for anyone who wants to be a little bit more optimistic in the search of love and in their current relationship, if they're in a beautiful one, for celebrating the real purpose of it, to remember the sales pitch of its amplification of your life. And, if you're still in search of love, to come back to yourself, build a life you love, and then to have love find you there.
Yeah, it's definitely for both.
Yes,
both.
for sure.
Awesome. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for listening. We'll see you next time. Bye. Thank you so much, Case Kenny, for joining us today. The book is The Opposite of Settling. It is out now. You could follow him on Instagram at case.kenny. And thank you so much for listening to the Almost 30 podcast. We have new episodes every single week. So please subscribe where you listen to podcasts. It means a lot to us. And if you loved this episode or any other that you've listened to on Almost 30, share it with a friend, share it with a family member. It's always so fun to start a conversation based on something that you were listening to. And I think it just brings an added texture to a relationship where you can kind of go deep, and we go deep here, as you know. So we love you. We will see you on the next episode. Bye.